Hello, everybody, and welcome to Succession Planning through Employee Ownership for the Greater Washington area business owners. My name is Donna Sky, and I am a business engagement and partnership manager here at Project Equity. Most of my work involves speaking directly to business owners who are considering their exit options and employee ownership in particular. I meet with individuals via consultation calls as well as in-field meetings. I also do a lot of presentations like this to raise awareness about employee ownership, and I work with regional partners and business serving organizations and professionals. I myself was a business owner for many years, so supporting small business owners is something that is both personally and professionally very important to me. So I work for an organization called Project Equity. Project Equity is a national nonprofit, and we have employees and staff all over the country. We also work with business owners and organizations all over the country to help business owners preserve their company's legacy by transitioning to employee ownership. We also help business advisors and economic development professionals spread the word about employee ownership. So, what is employee ownership? So, at Project Equity, when we talk about employee ownership, we talk about it as a way for owners to sell their business to their employees. And we define employee ownership as broad-based, meaning that everyone has an opportunity to own the company that is currently an active employee at the business. And this is different than some other employee owning strategies. So it's different than maybe a key employee buyout or just selling to a few individual employees. This is really shared ownership where the path to becoming an employee owner is clear and the same for everyone. And what does it mean to be an owner, or in the sense, for this case, an employee owner? So being an employee owner comes with benefits and responsibility. And in particular, there are benefits and responsibility to being an employee owner. So one of the benefits is that you have some control over the business. That may come in the form of voting, voice in decision making, and a role in the governance of the business that you work for. There are also some additional benefits are that it can be a really powerful tool to build wealth for the individuals who are employee owners, and also influence shaping additional worker benefits or decisions that impact you. But in terms of responsibility that also comes with that, there's this responsibility to really understand, what it means if, say, to serve on a board of directors and or what it means to be someone who can vote for that as an active employee owner, as well as other responsibilities that come up. In addition, there are some things that change and some things that stay the same. So what changes and what stays the same? So post-transition, it's really important that a company's operations remain strong. The business, in order to become employee owned, the company would take out debt to buy the business from the selling owner. So keeping that business in a really strong place is imperative for its sustainability and its ability to service that debt. And the day-to-day operations usually continue as normal. The management team generally stays in place, but if the selling owner is an owner-operator and they plan to fully exit after the company becomes employee-owned, an external hire would need to be made to replace them, or an internal leader in the organization could be developed or promoted to step into that role. We've also seen sometimes where it may be a combination of a few employees that take on more responsibility and step up into the role of the exiting owner. As well, many privately held businesses don't have an active board of directors, but when a company becomes employee owned, that becomes more active. So the governance layer is more active, and at minimum, a board of directors is established. And in the case of an employee ownership trust, there are other components of the governance that are activated. And, to keep in mind, the primary change, however, that happens is that the employees become the owners while the business continues to operate as it did before. So, why now? If you're a business owner watching this webinar or participating in this webinar, there are a lot of things you could be doing with your time right now to keep your business operating and moving forward. But part of leading a company is that vision and looking at the different chapters in life of your business. And over half of all business owners right now are over 55, and most, however, don't have exit plans. So with over half of businesses with owners over 55, there's this phenomenon which is called the silver tsunami, where more and more companies are flooding the market, and there may be more businesses for sale than there are actual buyers. And the numbers are quite large right now. There are over 2.9 million businesses in the United States with owners over 55, and this impacts over 32 million workers. Another aspect that makes employee ownership relevant right now is that selling a business isn't easy. I always say that, I spent my time as a business owner in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is the land of the unicorns. I mean, though they are all over the country, it was something that you might see quite frequently in the Bay Area, where businesses would sell for hundreds of millions of dollars, even billions of dollars. But part of why that was in the news is that it wasn't so common. And the reality is that selling a business isn't easy for most small businesses. So, coupling the fact that over half of businesses are owned by people over 55 and are going to be exiting or at least planning eventually for that next chapter of the business, less than 30% of these businesses will transition within to family members, which was much more common in the past. And as a result, only about 20% of businesses will actually sell. And so most companies may simply just have a shut down or just sell maybe some of the hard assets of their company. Next slide. But the good news is that you do have options, and I always talk to owners. I have the opportunity to speak to hundreds of business owners a year. And I always tell them, when we're meeting and they say, "Hey, Donna, what's the first thing I should think about when I think about the next chapter for my business or exit planning in general?" And I always say it starts with you. Start to make a list for yourself around what are the top priorities for you. What would you like your business to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What would you like your business to look like if you weren't part of the day-to-day operations? And once you start with that list, you can then start to compare the different exit options that you have and decide which is the option that can really help you meet your needs and also service your business into and usher your business into the future. Some of the top considerations that I hear from owners include the fact that they want an exit option that can retain the jobs for their employees, that help them realize their dream of building and growing their business. Sometimes I'll hear from owners that, really making sure that there are some tax benefits associated with the exit option they choose, making sure that they have a market value sale price for the company, and preserving their legacy. There are often many other factors as well, but again, starting with that list for what's most important to you can really help streamline selecting which option can check all the boxes that help you feel best about choosing your next move and the next path. Let's review what are some of the benefits of being employee owned and how an employee ownership sale might be able to check some of those boxes once you figure out what is most important to you. So, first off, um, being an employee owned company often makes the business stronger. In general, businesses that are employee owned are 8.5% higher in their profit margin than peers in the same industry. They also benefit or enjoy higher year-over-year growth. So that growth of 2% faster per year isn't a one-time thing, it's year over year, which can have lasting impact and really add up over time. Employee-owned businesses are also great for workers, which in turn is another thing that is great for a business. If you're a business owner, you know how expensive it can be to find, attract, train, and then retain a strong workforce. So when you have a model that really benefits workers and helps workers uh, in their life be able to show up at your business in a way that's more stable and enjoys more continuity, it in extension benefits the business. So a couple of the benefits include the fact that employee owners tend to have higher wages. In the employee owned companies, they tend to be about 33% higher. There's also longer job tenure. So 53%. So imagine if you're a business owner, if whatever your turnover rate is for your business, if that suddenly became 53% longer, what would that financial impact be for the business? And then if you're an employee listening to this, imagine if you could have more stability and continuity in your career. Also, employee-owned companies tend to have employees tend to have higher household net worth. So next slide, if you can go 2 slides. Yep. Okay. There are also some unique benefits for employee buyouts for the selling owner. So it can be a very seller friendly option for many sellers. Owners can achieve a fair sale price. So you're not gifting this company to your employees. The business, there's an actual sale that happens, and you are paid for the business as a selling owner. You can also have more control around your exit timeline as a selling owner. You can really do it in a way that works for you. So, some owners want to, right after the sale, they would like to exit right away and go on. They're serial entrepreneurs, they're ready and they want to start the next business, or they simply want to retire. For some owners, they want to stay on full time. For them, sharing ownership with their employees is really important, and they want to become one of the future employee owners of the business. And that is also possible for you as a selling owner. You can stay on in your role, continue to receive a salary even after you've been paid for the business, and you can also change your role. I've talked to some owners where, since they've been an owner operator, they had to do some work that was no longer their passion. Perhaps I'll give an example. If you're a therapy practice owner. For some therapy practice owners, they've had to do more administrative type work. But once they sell the business to their owner, to their employees, they've shifted their role to go back to doing more therapy on the day to day. So you can also craft your role in the future employee owned business and have more influence on that. The other benefit for a selling owner when choosing employee ownership is that you can preserve your company's legacy. You have quite a bit of influence on the future culture of the new employee owned entity, preserving the jobs for your workers and other assets and maybe services that your business offers. You can have more influence on that continuing into the future. Okay, so I'd like to dig in a little bit about the different employee ownership models. So there are three most common types of broad-based employee ownership. The first, many people have heard of already, is an employee stock ownership plan, or an ESOP, which is most commonly referred to. So ESOPs are retirement plans that own all or part of a company on behalf of its employees. Now, these tend to be a better choice for larger businesses. In general, it's recommended for a company to be an ESOP candidate that the business has at least 40 or more W-2 employees, and that the year-over-year profit is at least $1 million or more. Second, we have worker-owned cooperatives, and worker-owned cooperatives are owned by the employee owners who share in the profits, and they also elect and serve on the board of directors. So the structure of the governance is really defined when the company is in a worker-owned cooperative. And as such, for a cooperative, the majority of the seats on the board need to be served by active employee owners, and they need to be voted in by active employee owners. And then lastly, we have employee ownership trust. In short nickname for that is an EOT. And an EOT is a more customizable form of employee ownership. And this can be adapted to incorporate democratic principles and profit sharing. So I'd like to dig in a little bit more for the different models to give more specific information about each model. So if we can go to the next slide. So for worker-owned cooperative, there are a few things to keep in mind. Again, as I mentioned, a board of directors is made up a majority of worker owners in a co-op. And there's also profit sharing that happens via patronage. So that happens in contrast to an ESOP, which is a qualified retirement plan. The profit sharing or the financial benefit happens within a year or so of when it is generated for the employee owners. It's also flexible business forms. So the worker cooperative can be a cooperative co-op, it can be an LLC as well, which is most common. There are also federal tax benefits. So 1042 exchange is possible for a worker-owned cooperative. It's lower cost to set up and lower ongoing cost to become a worker cooperative. There is a buy-in amount, and when a company is a worker-owned cooperative, for someone to become a new member of the co-op, they need to opt in, and there is this buy-in amount. And that amount can really be customized for the particular company. So I've seen some businesses where the buy-in amount is $50. There are others where it's several $1,000s. It really depends on the business and the ability for the employee owners to pay that money. And that buy-in amount can come in one lump sum or can be paid off out of future payroll deductions as well to make it more accessible to the team. It's also good for companies of any size. So there are worker cooperatives that have a few employees, and there are worker cooperatives that have several thousand. So really flexible in terms of size. So next we have employee ownership trusts, or EOTs. So, an EOT is actually a type of perpetual purpose trust. And that perpetual purpose trust holds some or all of the shares of the company. So this trust protects the purpose of the business in perpetuity and makes it difficult for a company to be resold. So for owners for them, it's really important that the company not be resold. This may be a good model for you. The purpose of the trust is usually focused on the mission of the business. It could be you could have a few different missions. It could be organic farming and water conservation, or you could have one. And the company is operated by management and the employees, but you do have this active governance layer that for an EOT includes a board of directors as well as a trust stewardship committee that makes sure that the company continues to stay on mission or continues to fulfill its purpose. Employees receive a share of operating profit in accordance to whatever formula is created for the business. Okay, next slide. So we also have an ESOP, or an employee stock ownership plan. So the key thing to remember for an ESOP is that it's a qualified retirement plan, like a 401k. But it invests primarily in the stock of the company. So as the ESOP accounts grow over time, it can be a really powerful way to generate and build wealth for the workers. It can also be adapted to incorporate democratic principles in the business, and there's no cost to employees. Something I forgot to mention for the EOT, there's also no cost for employees for an EOT as well. And then some of the characteristics of this, however, that there is a higher cost to set it up, but it does come with some really important tax savings. But it does have, sort of the requirement to have higher profit and also higher number of employees. So it's better for larger companies, as mentioned earlier, that have 40 or more employees and at least $1 million or more in profit year over year. So again, it can be quite costly to set up, but with those important tax savings, it can be well worth it. So how does employee ownership transitions work? So at a very high level, what happens when an existing company becomes employee owned? So an existing company sells to a newly formed employee owned entity. And that entity takes out debt to buy the business from the selling owner. And they pay off that debt over time at a future profit. It says revenue, but it should say future profit, because you need that free cash flow to service the debt. So where does the money come from? If the individual employees are not paying for the business, it's the business itself that takes out debt to buy the business from the company. Because even in the case of a worker-owned cooperative where there is a buy-in amount, that buy-in amount is generally a smaller portion of what the total sale price of the business is. So it's the business itself that takes out debt, and they pay that off over time at a future profit. And in general, let's just say you have a company and the sale price is $1 million. So in general, 30 to 50% of the business can come from the money for buying the business would come from a seller's note. So there's a portion of it that's always seller financed. It could be a little bit more, it can be a little bit less. Some owners want to seller finance 100% of the transition. That's possible as well. But at minimum, there is a portion of the total sale that is financed through a seller's note. Then 50 to 70% of it comes from CDFI or some kind of bank lending. Project equity also has an impact fund called the Catalyst Fund, where if we work with a business, we may come in as one of the lenders in the capital stack to help finance the sale. And then in addition, there is that owner buy-in amount for worker-owned cooperative, but that's a nominal part of the sale price, and it is only for a worker cooperative. So in numbers, let's say that the company's sale price is $1 million. What could happen at the end of that sale if we did the 30-70% scenario? When the deal closed, if it was $1 million, the owner could receive a $700,000 check for the 70% that comes from the external lender. And then the company would also begin to make payments on the debt that would be taken out to buy the business from the owner. So they would begin to make payments to service the $700,000 that was taken out to pay the owner 70% at the close of the sale. But they would also begin to make payments to the seller's note of $300,000 if 30% of the sale came from a seller's note. So simultaneously, the business would be paying off debt of $300,000 for the seller's note and $700,000 for the external lending that happens if it's a 30-70% scenario. And then that employee buy-in amount that's really nominal, and that stays in the business and for a co-op. And when an employee owner leaves, there isn't negotiating around what's the value of the company. The employee would get back that initial buy-in amount when they leave. And for an employee ownership trust, there is no buy-in amount, so the employee doesn't get repaid that. So how do we work with business owners? So we found that it's most effective to work with business owners in phases. The reason being is that as a selling owner, there's additional information that you will get as you go through this journey of becoming employee owned. The first phase you're doing right now. So it may look like attending a webinar, and then the next step could be signing up for a consultation call with myself or someone else on my team, or maybe an employee ownership advisor or provider at another organization. But with project equity, if you were to work with us, the next step would be signing up for a one-to-one consultation, and I'll be providing my information for that. And that's where we can talk about the unique circumstances and the specifics of your business. Are you curious to learn more about employee ownership and how it can fit, in particular, your needs? What are the unique circumstances? What are your goals? And can employee ownership meet those needs for you? We'll also do some assessment around early viability. Generally, we're looking at things like the company's financial health as well as the current organizational structure. Sometimes then we will advise business owners that we speak to move on to the next phase in working with us, which is a feasibility assessment. And that feasibility assessment is where we really dig into the numbers around your company, and we work primarily with the selling owner in the feasibility assessment phase. Sometimes they'll bring in a key employee or two, but you're working with us to around sell price recommendations. We're also looking at your organizational structure, getting a sense of what your role is as a selling owner. Would someone need to be hired, or are you planning on stepping in? You'll also have an opportunity, once you've had those sale price recommendations, we can, with you, present to your team for an employee engagement meeting to help you gauge and assess the level of interest for your employees. Once you've decided that you want to, this is something that seems like it could fit for you and you want to move forward, the sell price recommendations work for you. We can help you present to your team. And then we give all that information to you in a report, and you're able to decide if you want to move on to the next phase, which is our transition phase. And at that phase, that's where the new employee owned entity is designed. It's also where we secure the financing for this and help lead the business to the closing of or closing the sale. So your new employee owned entity is designed and your existing company sells to that newly formed employee owned entity. And all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and now your company has become employee owned. And then after that, we found it's very important, and most of the clients we work with continue to work with us with our Thrive services. And that's where we help and support your new employee owned entity to build a culture of ownership. Because being employee owned is, it's great to have the bones and the DNA of being an employee owned company, but actually building that culture of ownership takes work, and we're there to help support you on that journey as well. So, as I mentioned, employee ownership can be a really powerful option for a lot of businesses, but it's not the best fit for everyone right now. And through the years that Project Equity has been working with businesses, we found that some of these readiness factors really help to give sort of an early sign of readiness for this way of operating a business and model of ownership. So the first is employee count and size. How many workers do you have that could become employee owners? In general, we recommend a minimum of 10 or more employees to be a good candidate for employee-owned entity. For a worker-owned cooperative and employee ownership trust, for an ESOP, we recommend 40 or more full-time W-2 employees. Financial health is also very important because, as I mentioned, the company, the new employee owned company, will buy the business from the selling owner and they pay off the debt that is taken out to buy the business from the selling owner at a future free cash flow. So, understanding the company's historical profitability and then projecting what those future free cash flow will be is key to really establishing the right sale price. So, in general, we recommend that the business has had a good financial health over the past 5 years. As well, a proven track record. Is this business, has it been doing well? Is it in an industry that's poised to continue to do well into the future? Has there been growth, or is this an industry that's declining? Again, employee ownership is really a good fit for a strong existing business that will only be strengthened and be set up to continue to thrive and grow into the future. And then lastly, minimal debt is also very important, as well as having a strong management team in place, or identifying, where that management would come from if the selling owner is looking to leave. If you'd like to book a consultation call, there is no cost for that. So you can do so by booking a consult call to explore fit for early viability. So you can either scan this QR code or go to our website and select book a consultation call. And you'll be able to pick a time that works best for your schedule there. We are doing a lot of work in the greater Washington area right now, and we have some great partners that are also supporting this work. So we have a landing page, and that really highlights the local organizations that we've partnered with to support employee ownership in the regions. And there's some really great partners that we have. So if you have a chance, I invite you to, click on that link, look at our landing page, check out some of these great organizations, learn more about us as you continue on your journey. That my name is Donna Sky, and my email is donna@projectequity.org. You can email me directly. You can also just go to our website and go to the Meet Our Staff and click on the link there to reach out to me. I'd love to hear from any and all of you and hear about your businesses and how we can help you on your journey as you continue exploring employee ownership. Thank you so much, and please don't hesitate to reach out.